Medicaid enrollment hits 100 million people this year. Yes, that's right. It has come up to be almost a third of all Americans are on Medicaid or some other sort of, well, it's probably more than a third at this point, or more than some sort of government assistance. But we'll talk about that and what that means and why, why this is both something terrible, but this also may be the plan. In other news, Biden, so in tune with the needs of his people, so in tune with the needs of his constituents who are freezing and dying across the United States in a disaster he should have been there to prevent, was so in a hurry to get off to St. Croix that he left without signing the monstrosity of an omnibus bill. So they're literally bringing the monstrosity of the omnibus bill to him. No, I'm dead serious. That's actually a thing that's happening. But we'll talk about that, what that means, why that's hilarious, and where we go with that. BlackRock has joined forces with the Ukraine to tell them how to spend their money on their recovery. Because nothing says government intervention like BlackRock. But we'll talk about that and what the mainstream media is trying to tell you and what this actually means. And Democrat states are worried that they can't pay out their retirement benefits that they've been promising to try to get people to move there and work for their governments. It is going to be all this and more. We are back. Happy New Year. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to this, your evening news. My name is Jay Edgar, and I will be your host for what we call Contemporary for the next couple of hours. We probably actually won't stretch that far. What has been nice about the Christmas holidays and the fact that, we're just waiting for things to blame on Kevin McCarthy is the fact that the news has actually been a little bit slow, and we've been getting out of here a little bit earlier than we usually do typically on a weekday night here. We haven't been going the 2 hours, 3 hours, etc. that we had to go when we were on the morning show, but that is going to start to come back, so we'll continue to watch this and we'll watch the news and see what happens with it. But yeah, we've got a lot to go over here today, and a lot of big stuff happening here right now as well. I know I'm looking over at the gas prices, so that's going to be some really, really good news for everybody as we look at what's happening in the same map that we've been watching for the last 2 years, and also looking at what's happening around your neck of the woods as well, because I can't look at everywhere in the country, but I can look at the same area and kind of give you a reflection of what your area might do as well. So we've got that. I skipped Thunberg. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I have no idea who Andrew Tate is, and from what people are telling me about him, I don't necessarily know why I should care. And I'm being completely serious when I say that. It doesn't seem like there's that much importance to who Andrew Tate is. So I chose to leave that off of there. I guess he's been arrested in Romania, but he's already back out on the streets. And from what other people telling me, it's really not that big of a deal anyway, because what they popped him for is basically the equivalent of being swatted here in the U.S. So it's a cluster. It's always going to be a cluster because he goes against the narrative. But we've got that we're not going to talk about. We'll talk about the Omnibus. We'll talk about Zelensky and BlackRock and the FEC too, by the way. Or is it the SEC? No, FEC. What is he joining? World Economic Forum. I was completely off. WEF. So we'll be talking about that. The retirement benefit story is just fantastic. That's my shocked Pikachu face. Plus, of course, at the end of the show, we've got Thing I Like and Thing That I Hate as well over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, I got some good ones here tonight. Things I like and things that I hate. So strap yourselves in, get yourself a beverage, get yourself a little bit of food, tell some friends. Let's get some lively chat going on in here. And of course, I will remind you that I may not address most of the chat tonight, but I will be writing down the names of everybody who chats here today, everybody who talks, and I will give a special thank you tomorrow. I know yesterday was probably the slowest day I've had since I started Contemporary. One name all night, but that name is still important to me because I'm thankful you guys spend your evening with me and get your news from here. I heard one person say, tangentially, that if he doesn't hear about it on Contemporary, he doesn't consider it to be important enough to follow, which that warmed my heart. And yeah, there are probably going to be some things out there for some of you that are more important to others. That's why we have the articles worth investigating in the Discord. And if you haven't joined the Discord and you've been watching this program and you're loyal to this program, why the hell not? Like, seriously, get in the Discord. Come in and join us for that. But with that, let's get out of the talk. Let's get in and let's have a conversation about what's going on in the world. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, the No Gimmicks Podcast. Go check out all that great programming as we seek to bring you news and commentary from the common man for the common man. That's right, a better news and culture experience from people who are just like you, who look around and say, do I have to make the house payment? Do I have to skip that for a month? Can I eat? Can I drink? Can I get beer? People who've had to do that in their lives. And I do hope that while we are seeing things crash down, I really do hope that we are seeing more people who don't have to fit in that category. But hey, the people celebrating the bad jobs numbers here are some of those people who are hoping that you are failing. So go get your news from people who don't hate you. Plain and simple. Don't get your news from people who hate you. Get your news instead from my friends. And as we go into the new year, the goal for this year is to get the new website launched and get you a better news experience. And hopefully, with a little bit more cash flowing here, we can make that happen. But that will also depend somewhat on you, and that's what we see coming up for that. Let's get into the news and the finance, starting with the Dow. The Dow is at 33,2080. Or 220.80 rather. It is up 345.09, and it just kind of jumped up and held steady. There was a second little jump in the middle of the day, but especially when we see jumps in the 300-point range, it jumps up at the beginning of the futures, and it just doesn't really move throughout the rest of the day. So we'll see what happens with this. The unemployment data is up, and people are using that as a reason to go buy stocks because they think that the recession is coming, and the faster it's coming, the faster it can be fixed, or something stupid like that. Meanwhile, millions of people will lose their homes, apartments, cars. Their children will go hungry. They'll have to skip meals. But hey, we'll get that inflation tamped down on the backs of the working class. That's our government for you. Looking in at the Bitcoin tonight, the Bitcoin is at $16,619 US and at 90 US cents. That is up $80.30 or about 0.5%. In a whipsaw fashion that is seen drops, that's seen rises and drops and rises, bring itself ultimately to being up right now, but still to a point where I would consider it to be on sale, especially considering that the year high is still over $60,000 per Bitcoin. So if you want some, it's on sale. Don't pay full price. Pay this price and hopefully sell at full price. Looking in at the gas prices, and this was what I was talking about here, we've seen a significant jump in fuel overnight in the Madison area. Of course, remember, I no longer live near the Madison area, but we still see some holding on to the 280, 290 mark, but all the quick trips appear to have gone to 310. And whatever Quick Trip does, everybody else is soon to follow, the BP getting itself to 299. The Amoco on the Isthmus is still at 286. The Speedway on the west side is still at 290. But just seeing those Quick Trip numbers, who are usually trying to keep themselves the lowest, and the one leaving town on the east side is still the lowest, I think they would sell that one at a loss just because that's the close one to the interstate, and they haven't been smart enough to bring one up onto the interstate in the Madison area, but that's the close one there. So we'll continue to watch those numbers and see what happens with this, but it does seem like we are starting to get another maybe 8% jump in gas. So if you need some, get some. All right, let's see what IBD has to say. From Investors Business Daily, Dow rallies 300 points after jobless claims. Tesla stocks surge on reiterated buy rating. From Scott Latonin. The Dow Industrial Average rallied 300 points Thursday after initial unemployment claims data from the Labor Department exceeded estimates. And Tesla surged on as Morgan Stanley reiterated an overweight rating with reduced price target. Weekly unemployment figures showed first-time claims rose 225,000 versus 216,000 in the previous week, higher than economy estimates for a rise to 222,000. Claims have been up and down in recent weeks, giggity, but generally trending lower since a mid-November high of 241,000. On the earnings front, chicken egg distribution giant Cal-Maine Foods reported Wednesday after the close. Shares declined more than 4% in morning trade. Calm stock ended Wednesday below a 62.74 buy point after 2 days of losses. EV leader Tesla raced almost 7% higher Thursday as Morgan Stanley affirmed its overweight rating on the stock despite a price target cut. Dow tech leaders Apple and Microsoft traded higher after today's stock market open. Cardinal Health, Medpace, IBD leaderboard stock Neurocrine Biosciences, and Texas Roadhouse, as well as Dow Jones names Amgen, Caterpillar, and Chevron are among the top stocks to consider for investor watch lists. Keep in mind the recent weakness should keep investors on the sidelines. Neurocrine is an IBD leaderboard stock. Caterpillar and Medpace were recent IBD stock of the day companies. And Cardinal is featured in this week's Stocks Nearby Zone column. So, and of course, this is from 8 hours ago, so this has changed. So we're going to skip off the rest of this here. But yet the fact that they're celebrating people being on unemployment because it means a possible end to the inflation, in spite of the fact that we just spent another $1.7 trillion. These investors do hate you, and the economy is not getting better. It's going to get worse for you. It'll get better for them as people sell shares and buy back to try to keep things afloat and alive and try to keep people raised up and into their investment portfolio. But yeah, for you and me, it's going to get rough. It really is. In fact, looking into some of the stuff and kind of cementing myself into the place that I'm at right now, I do think that doing what I did was the best decision. In fact, I think I actually may have been on the hook to be the layoff at my last job. But you know what? We'll see what happens with that. Where it goes and watch the markets here. I want to take this one here from Reuters, talking a little bit more about the housing market. Some new data coming out about that. Then some things to be expected as well, especially, again, as I mentioned here where I live, where prices dropped 50 grand in the first week that I lived here. And I've only lived here for 3 weeks, you realize. From Reuters, excuse me, U.S. pending home sales sagged more than expected in November. From Reuters. Contracts to buy U.S. Previously owned homes fell far more than expected in November, diving for a 6th straight month in the latest indication of a hefty toll the Federal Reserve's interest rate hikes are taking on the housing market as the central bank seeks to curb inflation. The National Association of Realtors said on Wednesday its pending home sales index based on signed contracts fell 4% to 73.9 last month from October's downwardly revised 77. Hold on for 1 second. A little bit of the lingering stuff from when I was sick over the Christmas weekend, which is lame. November's was the lowest reading, aside from the short-lived drop in the early months of the pandemic since NAR launched the index in 2001. Economists polled by Reuters had forecast contracts, which become sales after a month or two, would fall 0.8%. Pending home sales dropped 37.8% in November on a year-on-year basis. Pending home sales recorded the second lowest monthly reading in 20 years as interest rates, which climbed on one of the fastest paces on record this year, drastically cut into the number of contract signings to buy a home, said NAR chief economist Lawrence Yun. Falling home sales and construction have hurt broader economic activity. Contracts declined in all 4 regions, led by a 7.9% drop in the Northeast. All 4 regions also recorded double-digit declines on a year-over-year basis, with contract signings in the West down by 45.7%, by far the largest regional drop. The Midwest region, which with relatively affordable home prices, has held up better, while the unaffordable West region suffered the largest decline in activity, Yun said. And yes, we talked about this, I think it was on my first night back. We were talking about the fact that, number one, I'd seen home prices drop by 50 grand, but people were legitimately looking at homes and walking away from contracts, paying the contract termination fee because they were expecting prices to drop. They were going to sit on what they had and buy stuff at the bargain basement rather than buy it at the middling to still high prices. And this does affect everything else. So we'll continue to watch and see what happens with this. We have got to get into the main news of the day, and I'm going to start with this one here, talking about our government getting more people hooked on that government teat. That sweet, sweet, sweet government teat. From the Daily Wire, start off the top of the show, Medicaid enrollment to hit 100 million, include nearly one-third of Americans. From Dylan Burrows. Medicaid enrollment is expected to hit the 100 million mark soon, according to a new report. You know what this tells me? Before I get even anywhere into this article, you know what this tells me right here? Healthcare is too damn expensive. And do you know why healthcare is too damn expensive? Now, people will tell you all kinds of different stories about this. But do you know why healthcare is too damn expensive? Because the government's involved. Because the doctors, the hospitals can pay whatever, or charge whatever they want, and the government's just going to sign the check and pay the bill. The milestone will likely be reached within the next 75 days, a new project from the Foundation for Government Accountability revealed. For years, the FGA has been warning about the rising number of people on government welfare programs. Now they're nearing a grim milestone. Nearly a third of the country will be on Medicare, said Hayden Deblois? I don't know how you pronounce that. It looks French. FGA Data and Analytics Director. Our research and data show as welfare enrollment increases, which is the other problem, by the way, workforce participation decreases, which the Biden admin won't talk about. We're in the midst of a nationwide workforce crisis, yet the Biden admin is pushing policies to entice people into government dependency at record levels while limiting opportunities to achieve the American dream, he added. I will never for the life of me understand, for the entirety of my life, how people, anybody in the world, can be satisfied staying at home on the government check. I will never understand that for the rest of my days. When I was living in Kenosha, now mind you, I really wish I would have discovered the webcam and the YouTube at the time, because I think I probably would have been in a good position to really grow the channel at that time. Much better than, because I was kind of on the cusp and on the edge of where they were starting to censor people like this, but I can tell you that's where I started Adsblog, because there were several periods where it was just I was going in and taking whatever temp job I could get my hands on, working out the 90 days and wondering what I was going to do for food after 90 days or 60 days or whatever the hell the temp assignment was, and going out and constantly searching for a job, and even going out and searching for a job, doing the 2 a day, etc. Make sure you're out there, filling out the resumes, taking the job, trying to find a job, and not doing it just because I never got benefits. I most of the time had enough where it was tight, but I could still eat, and food prices hadn't gone crazy yet. But what I can tell you is at those times when I wasn't working, when I was dejected and there were no jobs out there, I was climbing the walls within 2 days. It took 2 days of being unemployed for me to be climbing the walls and wishing that I could be out going to work. I don't know how people do it. I really don't. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm mentally ill, but I don't know how people do it. The nonprofit group explained in a press release that the rapid growth in enrollment is primarily due to the federal government's continued extension of the pink pox public health emergency. So while they're trying to shut down the immigration policy from the public health emergency, they're still considering themselves in a public health emergency in order to give away billions of free dollars to people who aren't going to work. The program has added an additional 24 million Americans to Medicaid, the FGA stated. This number includes more than 21 million people otherwise unable to qualify because they earn too much money or are otherwise ineligible. The pandemic-era policy, paying more than 21 million ineligible enrollees on Medicaid, is costing taxpayers more than $16 billion per month. Per month! Billion with a B. Despite the recently enacted legislation allowing states to redetermine eligibility beginning in April, the Biden admin is slow-walking the process and hoping states will be sluggish to act, Dubois said in a press release. In approximately 76 days, 100 million people will be on Medicaid. States should begin preparing now so they can remove the millions of ineligible enrollees and reclaim program integrity as quickly as possible, he concluded. As of November, 39 states and D.C. have adopted Medicaid expansion that allows additional low-income people to qualify. In addition, the American Rescue Plan Act offered additional incentives in 2021 for even more expansion. So there is a lot of stuff going on with that. And again, I look at the fact that the states are now being able to decide whether or not to throw people off of Medicaid, and I do look at that and see a political ploy, as I do in a lot of things that are happening out of this government right now. And the ploy is that Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis and Glenn Youngkin and who's another good one? Mike DeWine, that would be another good one. Those are the big names that we all know, and we can identify their states. But I mean, there are a ton of other ones going on down in the South, out in the West, etc. That they will run up and throw people off their Medicaid and say, "Hey, you're not eligible anymore. We can't afford to keep going with you." While states like California, New York, Massachusetts, New Mexico, what's another good one there? Not Georgia yet. My state, Wisconsin, I guarantee you Evers is going to try to expand this. Minnesota. All those states go back out and expand and say, "Look how caring and wonderful we are. Federal government, can we please have some more money to cover our Medicaid, please? Oh, we'll totally pay it all back." The Biden admin has highlighted Medicaid expansion as a major reason for the nation's uninsured rate falling to a record low of 8% this year. Approximately 5.2 million people, including 4.1 million adults ages 18 to 64 and 1 million children ages 0 to 17, have gained health coverage since 2020, according to an August report by the Department of Health and Human Services. Well, and you scared some of the sheep people into thinking that if they left their homes, they would start to cough once and then fall over dead immediately from a Chinese virus. It came from China, okay. But how sad is this number? A third of our country is on government benefits. And we don't even have single payer. A full third of a hybrid government interventionist, government controlled model / free market model, which it is more of one than it is the other, but it's still considered a hybrid model. And we have 100 million people that have to be on additional benefits. And then when they go to take them away, it's going to be the next argument for single payer. I hope you're ready. I hope you're ready for Canadian-style death panels. All right, let's grab one from the Daily Mail talking about the incredible flying bill. From the Daily Mail, White House will fly a $1.7 trillion omnibus spending bill to Biden in St. Croix for him to sign as he vacations in billionaire Democrat donor's beachside mansion. We didn't learn any of this crap in Schoolhouse Rocks, I'm telling you. From Emily Gooden, senior U.S. political reporter in St. Croix. The White House will fly the federal budget that's Full stop. Stop right there. That is not a budget. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. This is not a budget. If this was a budget, this would have a full-on payment mechanism to make sure that it's all paid for, and it's not. It's just an itemized detail of how each dollar is going to get spent. The White House will fly the federal monstrosity to St. Croix for President Biden to sign into law ahead of the December 30th deadline, so the government doesn't shut down over New Year's Eve. The 4,000-page, $1.7 trillion Omnibus package will fund the government through September 2023, arrived at the White House on Wednesday after it completed the legislative enrollment process. It now needs to make its way to St. Croix, where Biden is spending the holiday week in a luxury villa owned by a billionaire Democratic donor. The White House received the bill from Congress yesterday evening, and the president intends to sign it before the government funding deadline, a senior admin official told DailyMail.com on Thursday. The White House has not publicly said how or when the legislation will arrive for the president to sign. On Wednesday, over 2,800 flights had been canceled and nearly 3,200 delayed in the after effects of the monster storm that hit much of the U.S. Southwest was hardest hit. As of Thursday morning, it had canceled 2,357 flights, 58% of its daily schedule, and 96% of all canceled trips in the U.S. today. Congress passed the massive budget bill last week, but then it had to go through a complicated enrollment process that involves printing the text of the bill on parchment paper with a certificate page that's signed by the Speaker of the House and the President pro tempore of the Senate. Yeah, because that's what we need to spend our money on. After that is completed, it's transferred to the White House for the President's signature. It would have gone to the Staff Secretary's office, which is responsible for all the paperwork the President must sign. Now, interestingly enough, this is not the first time this has happened. Daily Mail continues, this is not the first time the piece of legislation has flown commercial to the president's location. In May, a $40 billion U.S. package of assistance for Ukraine was sent with a staffer on a commercial flight to South Korea, when Biden was in Seoul for meetings with Asian leaders. Now, they won't tell us about anything that happened with any other president, which has happened. But that's not the first time Biden's even done this. So, there you go. He was so worried, so concerned about the people and the needs of the people that, whoops, we can't even sit down and sign this. Off to St. Croix I go. Moron. From the Post-Millennial. Not one that I use here. We got a couple pieces of Zelensky news here. Breaking. Zelensky announces he's planning to join the World Economic Forum in Davos to sign new post-war loans with BlackRock. From Hannah Nightingale. On Wednesday, it was revealed that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's government is prepping to participate in January's WEF in Davos, and that the Ukrainian leader is in talks with BlackRock CEO Larry Fink regarding rebuilding efforts following the war in Russia. According to Bloomberg, Zelensky said in an evening address to the nation, "Specialists of company are already helping you in Ukraine to structure a fund for reconstruction of state." Zelensky reportedly had the video call with Fink in September. He did not reveal whether he would be attending the WEF in person or virtually. According to a Wednesday post on the Ukrainian president's official website, Zelensky said, "In accordance with preliminary agreements struck earlier year between head of state and Larry Fink, BlackRock team has been working for several months on project to advise Ukrainian government on how to structure country's reconstruction funds." Let's see. The post goes on. Glorious leader Zelensky and wonderful comrade Larry Fink agreed to focus on near term on coordinating efforts of all potential investors and participants in reconstruction of country, channeling investment into most relevant and impactful sectors of Ukrainian economy. During conversation, it was emphasized that certain BlackRock leaders plan to visit Ukraine in New Year. The post continued. The president thanked Larry Fink for work of professional team that BlackRock has allocated to advise on structuring reconstruction projects. So BlackRock has found a new way to launder United States money and get involved and take their cut. Why are all these people working together? I need to understand that. Why are all these people doing all this together, and why is it something that I know that I should have out here as one of my emotes for high-paying tiers on Twitch, but I haven't gotten around to making yet because it sure seems like it's time for us to have this. Alright, we've got one from Fox. Something that, I think we all knew was coming. January 6th committee withdraws Trump subpoena. They knew I did nothing wrong. From John Salvatore. The January 6th Special Committee on Wednesday decided to withdraw its subpoena of former President Trump as it concludes its work. As it concludes its ability to actually function before they get their asses kicked out. Trump's testimony is no longer needed, according to the panel's chairman, Rep. Benny Thompson. Thompson noted in a letter to Trump's attorneys, in light of the imminent end of our investigation, the Select Committee can no longer pursue the specific information covered by the subpoena. Translation. We about to lose our jobs, and we can't do anything about this anyway. He added, therefore, through this letter, I hereby formally withdraw the subpoena issued to former President Trump and notify you he is no longer obligated to comply or produce records in response to said subpoena. Like, in all seriousness, we knew this was coming. As the new Congress was coming in and starting to talk about the fact that this was going to be disbanded, they had no teeth, they had no power. I'm still waiting to see if they try to push this through and do it on the Senate side. I think that would be stupid, but there are a lot of things the government does that is very stupid. Trump took to Truth, because of course he did, to share the following message. I was just advised that the Unselect Committee of Political Thugs. Did Trump write this, or did Ron Helton write this? The Unselect Committee of Political Thugs has withdrawn the subpoena of me, your favorite president, concerning the January 6th protest of crooked 2020 presidential election. They probably did so because they know I did nothing wrong, or they are about to lose in court. Perhaps the FBI's involvement in rigging the election played into their decision. In any event, the subpoena is dead. It's dead, okay? It's the worst. It's over. Political thugs. That's a Ron Helton thing to say right there. Some more information on this from the Associated Press. January 6th panel drops Trump subpoena as it wraps up its work. From Mary Claire Jalonik and Eric Tucker. The House January 6th committee has dropped its subpoena against former President Trump as it wraps up work and prepares to dissolve next week. Benny Thompson, the committee's Democratic chairman, wrote in a letter to Trump lawyer David Warrington on Wednesday that he's formally withdrawing his subpoena. As you know, the Select Committee has concluded its hearings, released its final report, and will very soon reach its end, Thompson wrote. In light of the imminent end of our investigation, the Select Committee can no longer pursue the specific information covered by the subpoena. They vowed to subpoena Trump, not because they actually wanted to get anything out of him, but because they wanted him to be on record as denying their subpoena. Lawmakers in the panel acknowledged the subpoena would be difficult to enforce, especially as Republicans are poised to take over the House in January, but the move had political and symbolic value. And that's just it. When even the Associated Press is saying that it's all political, it's all political. We are obligated to seek answers directly from the man who set all this in motion. But because we're not going to come back and talk to the FBI director, we'll have to go to the next best person and go and blame Trump for everything. Wyoming Rep. Liz Cheney, the panel's vice chairwoman and one of two Republicans in name only on the 9-member committee, said at the time, and every American is entitled to those answers. Except we're not going to go to the person who actually set it in motion. Trump then sued the panel in November to avoid cooperating. The lawsuit contended that while the former presidents have voluntarily agreed to provide testimony or documents in response to a congressional subpoena, in the past, no president or former president has ever been compelled to do so. The committee's request for documents was sweeping, including personal communications between Trump and members of Congress, as well as extremist groups. Trump's attorneys said it was overtly broad and framed it as an infringement of his First Amendment rights. While the panel never gained Trump's testimony, the committee interviewed more than 1,000 witnesses, chopped up their answers to say whatever it was that they wanted, including most of his closest White House aides and allies. Many of those witnesses provided substantive detail about his efforts to sway state legislators, federal officials, and lawmakers to help him overturn his defeat, but the vast majority of what they said was not aired. In fact, the only things that helped the panel that had no rebuttal were mentioned in any of this. And White House aides who were with him on January 6 told the panel about his resistance to tell the violent mob of his supporters to leave the Capitol after they had broken in and interrupted the certification of President Biden's victory, even though it's right there on Twitter. And by the way, a reminder, he hasn't tweeted yet, so that hasn't moved. In its final report issued last week, the committee concluded that Trump engaged in a multi-part conspiracy to upend the 2020 election and failed to act on the violence. The panel also recommended the Justice Department investigate the former president for 4 separate crimes, including aiding an insurrection. Insurrection! On Twitter, Trump lawyer Harmeet Dillon said the panel had waved the white flag. But again, basically, they can't do anything with it, so... But they can get him back in the headlines and say, oh, well, he denied it anyway. That is one thing that they can get back out of this, is they can get him back in the headlines one more time. Man, we're tearing through today. We might spend more time on things I like and things that I hate than we have on actual news. Let's grab this one from The Blaze. Neil Gorsuch sided with liberal justices in Title 42 case. Constitutional scholar explains why that's a good thing. From Chris Enlow. George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley explained on Tuesday why Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch sided with the left-leaning colleagues and opposed keeping Title 42 in place at the border. I think we talked about this the other night, but I wanted to confirm this. In a 5-4 decision, the court granted a stay against the lower court decision, ordering that Title 42 be overturned. The court, however, did not rule on the merits of the case in Arizona versus Mayorkas. The court will hear oral arguments in February. To the surprise of many, Gorsuch sided with his liberal colleagues and explained why he would not have granted the stay. In his dissent, which Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson joined in, Gorsuch said the court should not intervene in what is otherwise an issue for policymakers, i.e. Congress. Gorsuch wrote, "The states contend that they face an immigration crisis at the border and policymakers have failed to agree on adequate measures to address it. The only means left to mitigate the crisis, the states suggest, is an order from this court directing the federal government to continue its COVID-era Title 42 policies as long as possible, at the very least during the pendency of a review. Today, the court supplies just such an order. For my part, I do not discount the state's concerns. Even the federal government acknowledges that the end of the Title 42 orders likely have disruptive consequences. But the current border crisis is not a COVID crisis, and courts should not be in the business of perpetuating administrative edicts designed for one emergency only because elected officials have failed to address a different emergency. We are a court of law, not policymakers of last resort. Yeah, it sounds actually kind of like, I think Gaines is drunk. I think Gaines tapped into the New Year's Eve stuff a little bit early. But going back to this here, I mean, this is exactly what I said from the beginning when they started talking about the end of Title 42. And it does seem to hold the opposite stance on COVID based on party. Republicans think that the pinko pox is over, that there's no reason to continue any sort of pinko pox edict out there, except they love Title 42 because it helps hold up the Remain in Mexico policy and keeps people from coming up and rushing the border. So even though Title 42 is explicitly a COVID policy, and they think COVID is over, they think that that should stay in place forever. Meanwhile, Democrats think that you should mask your toddler and get your 29th booster shot and never go out in public and be able to work from home and live off the government teat and do slam poetry for 2 hours when the government provides for you. Because you might get a sniffle and you might kill grandma. But yet they think that Title 42 should end, even though that is explicitly a COVID emergency edict to help mitigate the spread that they are so concerned that they need to mitigate. And Gorsuch, like me, got it right on the point. I don't care which way you go with Title 42, just be consistent with it. I do tend to think that we should have another policy in place to take its place, but the Title 42 explicitly should be over because the pinko pox is over. The commie coof is gone. But that's what we have for that. The significance of Gorsuch's position cannot be understated. Whereas it may have been assumed that Gorsuch would join his conservative colleagues, Gorsuch demonstrated his independence from ideological tribalism. Turley explained his commitment to principle over convenience or compromise. Gorsuch recognizes that the Biden admin's opposition to Title 42 may fuel the flood of illegal immigrants across the southern border. Turley wrote on his website, which that is absolutely a thing, but if we are going to ever let go of this China virus pandemonium, then we need to stop using China virus era policies. Something that makes Democrats very uncomfortable. But it's not about what's convenient for you or making policy from the bench. It is about interpreting the Constitution. Specifically, I am against anything that's going to bring any more immigrants into this country. That's one of the few things the federal government has jurisdiction over is immigration. And they failed at it. Miserably. But I complained about the Supreme Court legislating from the bench before, and I will continue to do so. Alright, from the Daily Caller. Something I think is going to get our friend Ron's attention here. From the Daily Caller, Dem states are worried they can't pay out retirement benefits. From Laurel Duggan. I almost never use Daily Caller, but this one was just too funny to look askance from. 3 high-profile Democratic governors are struggling to stabilize their state's retirement programs due to a falling stock market and may have difficulties paying out benefits in the coming years, according to Politico. It's not just the stock market, I'm telling you right now. Democratic Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, and New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, all of whom are considered potential candidates for the 2024 presidential race. Yeah, we've pretty much considered that Biden's not going to be the incumbent, no matter what. Have poured billions of dollars into their state's pension funds, according to Politico. They may struggle to maintain their public images if they're forced to raise taxes or make budget cuts to keep pension payments flowing. Retirement fund investment plans can't accrue as much money in weak markets or during times of slow economic growth, so more of the payouts must rely on tax money, according to Politico. Rising interest rates and declines in the stock market in 2022 created a bad investment environment for retirement funds, and 2023 will likely be worse. Oh yeah, it's going to be worse, because we're going to have a recession on top of it, and people are going to start cashing out their 401ks to put bread on the table. Most state and local retirement systems lost money in 2022, including the California Public Employees Retirement System. The country's largest public pension, which lost nearly $30 billion with a B. According to Politico. Some of the blame lies with the three governors' predecessors who, of course it does, who failed to adequately fund the retirement systems while in office, Politico reported. When we arrived on the scene, New Jersey's pension system has either been ignored or underfunded by admins on both sides of the aisle for more than 20 years, Murphy told the outlet, adding that he is fully committed to paying the state's full obligation to its retirement system for the third time in a row in 2023. There's going to be acute fiscal pain in the pressure the more you ignore the costs, Leonard Gilroy, Senior Managing Director of the Reason Foundation's Pension Integrity Project, which advises state governments on pension plans, told Politico, if you're not paying it down, you're chasing it. This is the exact same problem the post office is having right now, too. They offered people massive pensions and the ability to retire at 50 years old and wondered why they're running out of money. And the state wants to be this large, massive employer, and yet wonder why they're running out of money. And all I have to say is, Another one from the Daily Mail. Migrant crossings drop as Texas uses National Guard troops, shipping containers and barbed wire to turn the banks of the Rio Grande into a ghost town, days after Biden's bid to get rid of Title 42 was blocked. So, in a few months, the Biden admin is going to sue Greg Abbott to remove the shipping containers. And I got this feeling, now I think Ducey did part of this because he's on his way out the door, and he knows that Katie Hobbs is just going to take him down anyway, but I think a part of this is because Abbott's going to go back and give the finger to the federal government and say, no. From Caitlin Corrale, U.S. political reporter for DailyMail.com. At least 9 shipping containers were placed on the border in El Paso, Texas, on Tuesday to help quell the massive migration crisis at that crossing point, as the number of asylum seekers sharply dropped off with the 6-month extension of Title 42. A mile-long stretch of border along the El Paso crossing with Ciudad Juarez, Mexico was flooded with thousands of migrants over the last nearly 2 weeks. Now, one first sergeant stationed at the border said it's a ghost town. In addition to the extension of the pandemic-era Title 42 expulsion policies, Texas Governor Greg Abbott also sent 400 National Guard troops last week to erect razor wire fencing. There are now 600 Texas National Guard members, which is probably part of the reason it is a ghost town, deployed along the border in El Paso as of Tuesday, helping to contribute to the noticeable decline in crossings. The troops exhibited a massive visual deterrent along the border from migrants attempting to illegally cross the Rio Grande and claim asylum by turning themselves into Border Patrol. I have less of an issue with the ones who are trying to turn themselves into Border Patrol. I still take issue to it, but I have less of an issue to that because while they're not coming in a port of entry, they are bringing themselves to authorities and saying, hey, process me, let's get our court date in, and let's try to do this the right way. Instead of just trying to sneak in and get lost among the people. And there is the shipping container wall from the Mexico side, because that's El Paso right there. And there's also the razor wire. So we'll see what happens with this, but of course, you know, the Biden admin's going to use the courts to try to claim that they have full authority over all the borderland. Hey look, there's a story there. Ray Epps denied working for the FBI during the Capitol riot and told the January 6th committee that bizarre right-wing conspiracies about him being an informant forced his business down the tubes. Dude, you're the literal only person on video telling people to go into the Capitol. Grab one from Ars Technica, because our government is in such great control of everything that it owns, and they want to control more aspects of your life too. Military device with biometric database of 2,000 people sold on eBay for $68. From Ashley Bellinger. When a German security researcher, Matthias Marx, found a U.S. military device for sale on eBay, an instrument previously used to identify wanted individuals and known terrorists during the war in Afghanistan, Marx gambled a little bit and placed a low bid of $68. He probably didn't expect to win since he offered less than half the seller's asking price of $149.95. But when he did, and after that, he had an even bigger surprise coming. The New York Times, a former newspaper, reported. When the device arrived with a memory card still inside, Marx was shocked to realize he had unwittingly purchased the names, nationalities, photographs, fingerprints, and iris scans of 2,632 people whose biometric data had already allegedly been scanned by the U.S. military. The device allegedly stored not just personal identifiable information, but seemingly suspicious persons, but also of U.S. military members, people in Afghanistan who worked with the government, and ordinary people temporarily detained at military checkpoints. Most of the data came from residents of Afghanistan and Iraq. All this data was supposed to be destroyed on site, but that seemingly never happened. No way! Shock Pikachu face. The failure to wipe device is consistent with U.S. military's occasional failures over the past decade. Occasional. Which have put people who help the U.S. military and U.S. military members at risk of being identified and targeted by the Taliban. Hey, Mr. Taliban, turn over Bin Laden. Daylight come and we drop the bombs. Currently, no one's even sure how many times the device has been traded since it was last used in 2012 near Kandahar. Marx has shown abundant caution with the data, declining to share the database electronically with the Times, which is probably the smartest thing he's done in this entire situation. Instead, the Times sent a reporter to Germany to Marx's location to see the data. Then it got, you shouldn't have done that either, but then got in touch with at least one American who confirmed the data was likely his. Somebody done screwed up. And that's not a little screw up. I mean, you're lucky it went into an ally's hands, but that could have easily gone into the hands of somebody who wanted to personally attack soldiers in this country. Alright, and I have one more on main news, and then we have things I like and things that I hate. This comes to us from CNN, talking about our friends over in the Levant. Benjamin Netanyahu sworn in as leader of Israel's likely most right-wing government ever. From Rob Picheta, Hadass Gold, and Amir Tal. Yeah, there are only ever like 3 people who can be PM in Israel, and they just kind of keep rotating them back out. Benjamin Netanyahu on Thursday completed a dramatic return as Israel's prime minister after being sworn in as the leader of what's likely to be the country's most right-wing government ever. My most right-wing! Netanyahu and his government were sworn in on Thursday for his 6th term as prime minister, 18 months after he was ousted from power. Not for long! He returns with support of several far-right figures, once consigned to the fringes of Israeli politics, after cobbling together a coalition shortly before last week's deadlines. I can just hear Midget B seething in the background over this. I can hear him already, and he's not even watching this show as far as I know. Which is kind of crappy because I watch all his shows. Members of Netanyahu's Likud party will fill some of the most important cabinet positions, including Foreign Minister, Defense Minister, and Justice Minister. Justice! But a number of politicians from the far right of Israel's political spectrum were set to be appointed to ministerial posts despite controversy over their positions during the run-up to November's election, which was won by Netanyahu-led bloc of ultra-nationalist and ultra-religious parties. Itamar Ben-Gvir, an extremist who has been convicted for supporting terrorism and inciting anti-Arab racism, will take on a newly expanded public security role, renamed National Security Minister overseeing police in Israel, plus some police activities in the occupied West Bank. Bezalel Smotrich, leader of the religious Zionism party, this is where Midget B starts screaming and posting memes, has been named Minister of Finance and has been given power to appoint the head of the coordinator of government activities in the territories, an Israeli military unit which among its duties handles the border crossings and permits for Palestinians. Hang on, I need to go set somebody off. And I need to tag that person. I need to go change everybody's names off their Christmas names, too. It was festive, so I started changing my friends' names in Discord. Let's see what he has to say about that. Maybe we'll get some entertainment after the show. I'm going to probably maybe be in voice afterwards, too. During his campaign, Smotrich has proposed a series of drastic legal reforms, seen by many critics as a clear way to undercut judicial independence. This includes dropping the ability to charge a public servant with fraud and breach of trust, a charge Netanyahu faces in his ongoing corruption trial. Netanyahu has pleaded not guilty and called that trial a witch hunt and an attempted coup, and has called for changes to Israel's judiciary system. So there it is, Netanyahu, PM of Israel once again. Alright, that's all that I have for news for the day. A short day on news. We got through everything in an hour. I haven't said that in Contemporary since July maybe of 2020. But as we we finish out, we've got a couple things that I like and a couple things that I hate. So, thing I like number 1 today, and this is just a kind of a strong moment. This is how we should all be. When they come out to call us racist, sexist, etc., we should be in a position where we can feed ourselves for 6 months on our own. I know that I'm not in that position right now, but hopefully with this new job I'll be able to get in that position. But we should be able to feed ourselves for 6 months. When they come out to try to tell the world how racist we are and take away our ability to make an income, so we can do what Shia Reichik has said and basically given the finger to people who have tried to ruin her life for being racist. Now, some of this is a little bit symbolic because everything about her was already leaked, but now that she's leaked it, I'm actually going to say her name. You'll remember when the leak first happened, I did refuse to do that. In spite of the fact it was public information, I still chose to not say her name. From Amanda Harding. Shaya Reichik, the person behind the popular Twitter account Libs of TikTok, explained her reasons for revealing her face after staying anonymous for so long. Reichik has been hated by the left ever since starting the social media account. She was doxxed by the Washington Post journalist Taylor Lorenz, the empty egg carton extraordinaire, several months ago, but this week Reichik decided to reveal her face during an interview with Tucker Carlson. The social media powerhouse said that when the account was first started getting attention, she was relieved to be anonymous. The left was brazen with their threats of violence against people they disagree with, including me. She shared a Substack update. Ultimately, Reichik has said her decision to become a public figure is rooted in her mission to protect children and expose the dangerous leftist agenda. Staying behind a screen and restricted 240 characters on Twitter just isn't enough anymore to counteract the rampant issue with the left's agenda in America, she told her fans. It's not an easy thing to reveal your face to millions of people, especially considering the number of death threats I receive. The Libs of TikTok creator also said revealing her face is a big middle finger to critics. Based, including journalists who mocked her for being fearful. I'm not hiding, and I'm not scared of whatever they try to throw at me to stop me from exposing them, she wrote. Reichik explained that she'll be more effective out in the open, teaching others how they can make a difference in the culture war. Where she plans to continue fighting the deep, dark, and systematic targeting of our children. During a previous interview with the Daily Wire, Reichik said she never intended her Twitter account to go viral. Yeah, but it's too good. It's just too good. People think that I started this and I had this whole plan and I wanted to harass people on the left, she said in April. They think I had this whole agenda. I was just having fun. And it is a very, very fun account to follow. If you choose to be on Twitter, even as a passive observer, this is one to watch because it's a lot of fun. And the other thing that I like is maybe the free market is answering at this point. With video from the Blaze Massive Overflow audience descends upon Kirk Cameron's reading of his God-focused children's book at Indianapolis Public Library. It was a mob seen on Thursday at Kirk Cameron's reading of his God-focused children's book at the Indianapolis Public Library. Except this mob didn't do what mobs do. Rather, it was just smiles, cheering, and laughter all around. Based! Let's watch.
Because there's about 1,000 people in the library on other floors that haven't gotten up here. God's not finished with any of us yet. We're all growing, and we all have lots to learn. And thank you for coming and making this such a special event
This
today.
is so based.
God bless you and Happy New Year.
This is so based. I can't even get over how based this is. Folks even saying God bless America.
America, my home sweet.
Uh-oh. Brave Books, Cameron's publisher for As You Grow children's book, earlier this month, said 2 public libraries agreed to let him do readings for kids after initially saying no to the actor, an outspoken Christian. Cameron told Fox News Digital he won after challenging the library's denials and threatening to assert his rights in court, which I don't consider that to be based. Especially when we see what it is the free market can do. Check out Cameron addressing the huge crowd at the Indie Library.
They're going to let me speak over the loudspeaker, the PA, because there's about 1,000 people in the library on other floors that haven't gotten up here. So I'm going to be talking to everybody in just a few minutes. And I just want to thank them for coming and thank you for coming and making this such a special event today. And find great books. I'm sure there's so many of them here at this library. Read them to your kids. God bless you and Happy New Year.
What a legend. And again, the free market does better than anything else at showing you what it is the people actually want. They can run on Twitter. They can run onto Instagram. They can run out there and say, "Oh, well, we want everybody to be. Well, nobody wants Christianity anymore. Everybody hates Christianity." And yet, an overflow to go see Kirk Cameron, who hasn't acted in anything for probably almost my entire life, to get up and read a Christian children's book. There's an appetite for it. And that's the thing that I like. And now for a couple things that I hate. A little bit of lying coming off of here from NBC News. January 6th response would have been vastly different if rioters were black, House Surgeon at Arms told investigators. Why? I wonder if we had any sort of comparison to this. Like, maybe during June of the previous year. Wouldn't that be funny? If we actually knew what happens when black people riot in the White House, in BLM Square, in DC, and take it over. I wonder what would happen if we actually knew what happened there. From Ryan J. Riley, the House Sergeant at Arms, who was the head of the DC National Guard during the attack on the Capitol, told the January 6th committee that the law enforcement response would have been very much different if the rioters had been black. I'm African American, child of the 60s. I think it would have been a vastly different response if those African Americans were trying to breach the Capitol. William J. Walker told congressional investigators in an interview transcript released on Tuesday. As a career law enforcement officer, part-time soldier, last 5 years full but a law enforcement officer my entire career, the law enforcement response would have been very different. What are you trying to say? His testimony echoed observations of many Americans, including President Biden, who noted the stark difference in the law enforcement response to protests in Washington following the May 2020 death of George Floyd, and the lax security at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Well, right, but you let everybody go back and riot and do whatever they wanted. You kept your own safe, but everybody else, as long as they didn't get into the buildings, they could come back and do whatever it was that they wanted. These people, I swear to God, these people, and it doesn't stop there with the accusations of white supremacy. Because it goes further than that. And the other thing that I hate, of course, The Blaze reporting on a Time article, which I also have pulled up here, and we'll look at some of that as well. But reading from The Blaze first on the headline, exercise is white supremacy. Time magazine article connects Peloton, AIDS, and 9/11 in fitness conspiracy theory. And these people, by the way, will come back out and call you a conspiracy theorist. for asking questions about the Pinko Pox. From Andrew Chapados. Time.com published a bizarre Q&A recently exploring an author's unorthodox attacks on the origins of physical fitness and exercise. Man, if I was racist, I could go through all the theories that my friends have told me over the years about why this is probably exactly the opposite. But I'm not that person. The article, titled The White Supremacist Origins of Exercise and 6 Other Surprising Facts About the History of U.S. Physical Fitness, provides an unsighted attempt to describe sinister origins behind everything from President Kennedy's fitness campaign to simple running. Author Natalia Melman-Petruzella wrote Fit Nation, a book that states in its synopsis that fitness is a social justice issue. Oh my god. Oh my god. Petruzella reminds readers that until 1920, being fat was attractive. No. What would be considered today fat or bigger was actually desirable and actually signified affluence, which is like the polar opposite of today, she explained. At the turn of the 20th century, however, women were supposedly encouraged to exercise and gain strength because the powers that be decided they needed more white babies. Oh my god. Oh my god. This is real, by the way. To counter immigration. This is totally a part of a white supremacy project, she points out. Running, which Petruzella says was popularized by environmentalists, was not only never fair, but was also unsafe and discriminatory. Access was never totally equal. If you lived in a neighborhood that didn't have safe streets or streets that were not well lit, the author explains, women were catcalled, people of color were thought to be committing a crime. She continued, oh my god. But again, I want to remind you, this is not just Glenn Beck's people coming out and making fun of Time magazine. This actually exists. This is a real thing. And let's go over and look at that. From Time magazine, it's actually here. This is a real thing. And I got this feeling that we're going to read the regular one because they're not going to bomb me for ad blocker, but we also do need to go back and archive this, which it looks like it already has been. Before that disappears off the internet forever. The white supremacist origins of exercise and 6 other surprising facts about the history of U.S. physical fitness. This is real, by the way. From Olivia B. Waxman. How did the U.S. exercise trends go from reinforcing white supremacy to celebrating Richard Simmons? That evolution is explored in a new book by a historian of exercise, Natalia Melman-Petruzella, author of the book Fit Nation, The Gains and Pains of Americans' Exercise Obsession, out January 2023. Nowadays, at the beginning of every new year, many Americans hit the gym to work off their holiday feast. This momentum usually starts to fade in mid-January, according to a 2019 analysis of data and fitness tracking apps by Bloomberg. But such New Year's resolutions are pretty new, as is the concept of exercise as a way to improve bodily health. It's really not until the 80s that you start to have a consensus that everyone should be doing some sort of form of exercise, says Petruzella, a professor at the New School in New York City. That's partly the result of the women's movement of the 60s and 70s, which fought for Title IX, allowing girls to play school sports that pushed back on notions that girls and women aren't capable of doing vigorous exercise because they're fragile. Oh, jeez. Perfect for reading, on the treadmill, or stationary bike. Oh my god. You went there. Oh my... Oh my god. This is a thing that exists, folks. Perfect Perfect for reading on the treadmill or stationary bike, the below conversation with Melman Petrozella outlines the earliest ideas of exercise, delves into the history of various popular workouts, and the outsized influence of Richard Simmons. And she's got an interview. This is going in the Discord too, by the way. In fact, again, we're doing this right now. I can't believe this is a thing that exists. We're dropping this right in Clown World. We're not doing this in regular general chat. We're doing this in Clown World. I can't believe this is a thing. So, there it is. If you want to exercise and be healthier, you're a racist. What is happening to this world, folks? What are we doing here, folks? I'm gonna get out of here before I'm completely black-pilled. Thanks for watching, everyone! Thanks for watching me lose more faith in humanity. Oh, look, it's raining out. Huh, nice. Anyway, we're going to head out of here for the night. Bit of an early night, as usual, but the news is slowing down a little bit because the midterms are over. And they can't go blame everything on McCarthy yet. But we'll be back here tomorrow with more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Plus, I don't have the notebook over. I don't know where the notebook went right now, but I don't have it over here. But it will be over here come tomorrow because I will be writing down the names of everybody who chats in the live chat. That's right. We'll say a special thank you to everybody from the past week. And I do read all your live chat after the fact too. So do keep in mind that all your stuff is getting to me. So that's all happening there. But we write down the names of everybody who chats. And I say a special thank you on Friday. And I go through some of your chats as well. So definitely looking forward to seeing you here tomorrow for some live chat. And the last contemporary of the year. That's right. It is New Year's Eve, and we'll be talking, and we'll be having some fun and hanging out and reading live chat, and maybe I'll even have a drink. I don't have to go to work on Saturday morning anymore, so maybe I'll even sit down and have a glass with you guys. Hopefully, I think that would actually be kind of nice, and I got some nice American whiskey that I'd like to drink as well, but we'll see what happens with that. We'll see where we go. I would definitely enjoy that from you guys. My first drink on Contemporary. That'd be exciting. I never even thought about that. Because I always had to work on Saturday mornings bright and early, and I was always on Contemporary Saturday mornings as well, or Friday mornings as well, but we spend enough time. If you're on Twitch, stick around. We're going to go raid somebody over on that side. Otherwise, come back here, join me tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more Contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.